Okay, hello and welcome everyone. Welcome to JFD Brokers Traders Tea Time with me, Darius Anucauskas. I do apologize for the late start a little bit here. My colleague was still finishing his video, so but now we can get back on track. And before we continue, as always, let's quickly have a read through our risk disclaimer. So, the content we produce does not constitute investment advice or investment recommendation, should not be considered as such, and does not in any way constitute an invitation to acquire any financial instrument or product. As always, a few seconds for you to read the rest, and we can continue. Okay, so now then, guys, let's quickly jump into the charts. Now, the first one I want to touch on here is the S&P500. Now, looking at this index here, you can see that this is what's happening right now. So basically, of course, the US markets are open already, and we've managed to make a nice push here towards this 2816-17 level. The index actually kind of tried to push higher, but kind of still failed to remain there. We do have a very good area of resistance here near the R2, which is around the 2820 zone. So in a way, this is where we're gonna look at for today. A nice good push above the 2820 zone could open the path towards slightly higher levels. Of course, this would confirm a forthcoming higher high, and we could maybe then target the area around the 2831-32 zone, approximately there, which is also coinciding here with the R3, today's R3. So guys, long story short, basically keep your eyes on the 2820 zone today. We could actually lift this resistance a little bit higher here now, and like I said, keep our eyes on the 2820. So a nice, good, beautiful number here. Keep a nice good pop above this, then yep, could open the path towards slightly higher areas. And above that as well, we do have this area here around the 2848-49 zone. In a way, you could round it up towards the 50, so the 2850 zone. This could be that next potential target here if we see a nice good push above the 2820 zone, because you can see that back here around the 25th of July, it acted as a nice area of resistance, or in other words, actually the highest point of July last year. So keep your eyes on that one, keep your eyes on the 2850, but only if we see a nice good pop above the 2820 zone. In terms of the downside, well, I do have this level right here marked, the 2800, so the psychological 2800. If we see a drop below that, yep, further declines could be possible. We could see a retest of the 2765 zone, which is around here, marked by the low of the 21st of February, and if that fails to withhold, then yep, this would also automatically place the index below the 50 EMA, and the path towards lower levels could be open. And by lower levels, I mean the 2740 or even 2721 area, 22 approximately there, because that marks the low of the 8th of March, which was last Friday. So in other words, the lowest point of last week. So but then again, we would like to see a nice good drop below the 2800 first before we could assume lower areas. But for now, this is where the index is stuck, and this is what we're going to look at. We're going to look at these levels here. On the upside is the 2820 zone, and on the downside is the psychological 2800. So keep your eyes on that one. Jumping very quickly into this index, which you probably don't look at very often, but quite interesting actually developments happening here. Very technical. CAC40, so the French index, you can see that how well it continues to travel higher within this rising channel formation. Today, of course, it already had a nice spike here where it managed to reach the 5,424 area approximately there. It just fell shy of a few points of reaching the R3, today's R3, and you can see that now it reversed back down, dropped below the R2, which is around the 5,388 zone, and now it's currently aiming towards the R1, which is around the 5,369 level. So of course, for now, overall, we are still bullish on this one. We could see maybe this one traveling a little bit lower, finding some support somewhere here, and then reversing back to the upside. Now, in order, let's say, to start looking at the downside, we would like to see a drop below the 5,330 level. Initially, if we see a drop below this level, we will start considering lower areas, at least towards this lower bound of the rising channel formation. Let me just quickly put an arrow here for our future reference. So basically that's the scenario, but until then, as long as it remains here, or as long as it remains above the 5,330s level, well, we will actually continue seeing this as a small correction, and potentially we could see a reversal here and another push higher. So in a way, let's see how this day is going to close. We're definitely going to close probably in but most likely we were going to close in the positive territory, of course. But again, of course, keep your eyes on some of these key areas of support and resistance. So in terms of the downside, again, I'll repeat myself, the 5,330 level, that's where we're keeping close eye on. And for the upside, you could in a way keep your eyes on this little area around the psychological 5,400 level. So a nice another good push above the 5,400 level could lead towards potentially could lead towards the upper bound of this rising channel formation. So keep your eyes on this one. Very interesting developments here could be, and let's see how this plays out later on. Jumping into Brent oil, not going to spend too much time on it, but just going to mention you, I was talking about this one in one of my previous videos, and this week, of course, and this morning actually I was talking about WTI, but not much difference here. It tried to push higher. It managed to get itself above the 67.70 level, very important barrier here, the high of the 22nd of February. Or in other words, the highest point of February. It managed to travel higher, but failed to actually reach our next area of resistance around the 68.35 zone. And just to kind of let you know what that level was here in the past, you can see that how well the 68.35 level played its key area of its key role of resistance on the 16th of November. So, or in other words, the highest point of no, I'll correct myself here, just the high of the 16th of November. I wanted to say that the highest point of November, but we did actually have higher levels here. So the highest point of the 16th of November was here around the 68.35 level. The commodity failed to reach that area, even though it tried to push it higher. But you can see that yesterday the commodity dropped below this level right here, the 67.70, and this morning it tried to push higher, tried to break that, but failed. And of course the bears took that as a great opportunity to jump in and take advantage of the higher price. More bears started jumping in here on the break of the 67 level, and you can see this is where the where Brent is resting right now, near its S2, which is around the 66.40. Of course, further declines could be possible here. In a way, what we're looking here for is of course a possible retest of the 65.65 zone, but if that fails to hold, then of course we will look at the 200 EMA. So for now, of course, like I said, we are more bearish than bullish on this one, given the fact that it broke back down below the 67.70 and then actually dropped below the 67 level. So now the next target for us would be the 65.65 zone. But if that fails to withhold, then yep, we will start looking at the 200 EMA or even the 64.30, which previously acted as a good area of support here back on the 25th of February, and also around the 8th of March. Basically did undershoot it here a little bit, but still kind of quickly got back above it, and still, like I said, this is what we're going to look at. We're going to look at the 64.30 level as the potential target, but only if we see these clearances here first, the clearance of the 65.65 and of course the 200 EMA. Let's jump into a few pairs now and see what's happening there. Now, GBPUSD, very interesting activity here today. Initially, of course, I was talking about this one actually in my traders espresso this morning, basically where I was telling you guys to keep an eye on this level, the 132.20 zone, and basically we did have initially a drop below that, but you can see that the pair managed to travel lower, test the S1, which also coincided with the 21 EMA, perfect touch here, but then the bulls actually took advantage of the lower rate here and pushed the pair back above this 132.20 zone and actually managed to drive it back above the pivot. So of course this creates a slightly more bullish scenario, and of course, but for us, as I've mentioned in the morning video as well, for us to keep to start looking at higher areas, we would like to see a nice push above the 132.85 zone, and only then we will target higher areas. For now, you can see that it tried to push higher but failed, but still remains above its pivot. So the big question here is where this this pair is going to close today. If we do get a nice close here above the 132.85, certainly that increases the chances for the pair to travel further up here towards the 133.50, which marks the highest point of February, or actually even higher. But for now, let's go step by step. Let's see what it wants to do with the 132.85 level. If it manages to break that, yep, that's wonderful for the bulls. We could see this one traveling further up here, of course, towards the slight psychological 133 level. But if that level is just seen as a little pit stop for the bulls, then you have further acceleration towards the R1, which is around the 133.23 zone. Could be possible, and for now, like I said, keep your eyes on the 132.85 level on the upside, and on the downside, well, keep your eyes on this pivot, which is around the 132.66 level. A drop below that could lead towards a move back down towards the 132.20, and to be honest, it seems like that the pair could end up the day somewhere around here and wait for next week to make its big move, either to the upside or a break here lower to the downside. So yep, for now, guys, keep your eyes on the pivot from the very short-term perspective, of course, around the 132.66-65, and on the upside, keep your eyes on the 132.85. Well, let's see which way this breaks. GBPCAD, similar story, but to be honest, the CAD is performing worse today than the US dollar, and you can see that this is what's happening here on GBPCAD. GBPCAD is pushing higher. Also, initially in the beginning of the day, it managed to travel lower below the pivot, managed to actually reach this key area of support that we had this one marked for quite a while, and you can see that perfect touch here at 175.55 level, from which it rebounded and it pushed higher and actually pushed back above the pivot. Of course, it seems that it's aiming right now for the R1, which is around the 177.45 zone. Let's see if it actually manages to reach that, because you can see that it did have its chance to reach that but failed, and now it's kind of trying. It seems that the bears are trying to get back into control here. Let's see, like I said, let's keep an eye on the 177.45. This is going to be our next level, because if we do see a nice pop above the 177.45, the next potential area here is around the 177.75 level, or even actually we're going to go high, could go higher towards the R2, which is around the 178.15. But for now, this is where it is. Certainly, from looking from this picture right now, we are slightly more bullish than bearish on this one, and like I said, initially going to be aiming for this R1, but if this decides to reverse sharply and drops below the pivot, we will target the S1 today again, which is around the 176 level. So if we see a drop below the pivot, which is around the 176.70, the next target for us is going to be the 1.76 level, and that's for today, of course. If we see a move further down, then yep, lower levels are possible. Again, the 175.55 could be back on the radar, but again, for today, for the remaining of today, then probably could bounce around this pivot today, or actually we could see maybe a test of this R1. But to be honest, this is more likely that we could see a test of the R1, given the fact it's not far from it. And the main question here is this going to travel further up, or actually this is going to there will be a lot of profit taking from the bulls here, and we could see maybe this one sliding back down. So for now, the long story short, guys, basically the R1, this is the one that we're going to be looking at for now. Euro dollar, very quickly. It's a bit of a mixed trading here. Initially, of course, it traveled higher, yes, failed or tested the R1, but then we saw this quick sell-off here, which forced the pair to drop below the pivot, but it didn't hang around there for too long, and we saw the bulls pushing this one back up here toward the R1, and now you can see that the pair is traveling higher, breaking the 200 EMA. The big question here is, where is this going to end the day? If this is going to remain above the 200 EMA today, well, to be honest, going into next week there could be some more upside, and of course for the upside here, the upside could be limited due to this little downside, tentative downside resistance line. But if this is just a small obstacle on the bull way, then well, a break above the 114 level could open the path towards much higher levels in the medium term, and we could then target the 114.50 or even higher. For now, of course, keep your eyes on the 113.50 and the R2, which is around the 113.55. Those are actually possible targets for today. If this decides to reverse back down and drops below the 200 EMA, well, we could see maybe a bit of a correction here next week, maybe going back down again, retesting the 113 level or maybe lower, but of course we'll reevaluate that next week as well. But for now, the big question here is, of course, is this going to remain above the 200 EMA or not, or even actually if this decides to travel higher and it closes above the 113.50. Now this, like I said, this is going to create a lot of interest from the buyers again, as we could see this one traveling further up again. So USDCHF, last pair for today, for this session, keeping an eye on this little support area around the 1.0020, and I was talking about this one previously in one of my videos that I was talking about, where I was talking about USDCHF. Basically, in order to consider lower areas, at least going into next week, we would like to see a nice good drop here in a close below the 1.0020, and of course below this 200 EMA as well. Well, if we see such a thing, if we see such a move here, then well, the next target that we're going to be aiming for is going to be around the psychological 1 level, or even the 0.9980 level, which also acts as a good area of support. But also a break below that could lead towards further levels. But for now, the main question here is, let's see how this is going to play out around the 1.0020 level, and if we're actually going to get a nice close below the 200 EMA. And if we do see something like that, then yep, further declines are possible. In terms of the upside, for us to get more comfortable with higher areas, we would like to see a nice good push back above the 1.0056 level, and only then we will target higher areas. Okay guys, I hope you found it useful. Thank you very much for watching and listening, and if you want to join me on Monday morning at my Traders Espresso, and that's 7 o'clock GMT time as always. But for those who are have finished trading for today, I hope you have a wonderful weekend. For those who are still trading and are going to be trading the US session, be very careful, be very cautious, and I hope you make a lot of pips and start your weekend on a positive note. Anyway guys, I hope you have a wonderful weekend once again, and I'll see you next week. Bye bye.